Hey there everyone, this is Samuel Johnson and welcome back to the Steven Universe Retrospectives, and today we're going to be discussing episodes 99 and 100 of Steven Universe, Beta and Earthlings. Now, today's pair of episodes are more or less a two-parter, so much like with previous two-part episodes, I'll be covering the plots for both these episodes all together and pretty much just consider them the same episode, so... Well, there you go. But whatever. Anyway, the first of these episodes, Beta, actually opens with Steven and Amethyst on their way to see Lapis and Peridot. Steven is encouraging this visit because, well, he wants to see how Lapis and Peridot are doing, and he thinks Amethyst needs a vacation. Mostly because she's still obsessed with beating Jasper. And, yeah, while Steven did help calm her down up to the point where she's now willing to talk to him about her problems, well, she has not given up the hunt, and even on the way to the barn, Amethyst is just practicing with her whip and constantly kind of getting on herself for it not being quick enough or fast enough or snappy enough, and so on and so forth, which just further makes Steven believe that she really does need a break. As such, Amethyst just kind of rolls with it and kind of goes whatever. And while Steven says that, oh, maybe everything will be fun, Amethyst thinks, yeah, the first person I think of when I think of fun is Lapis. And she's basically convinced that maybe Lapis and Peridot have driven each other up the wall and potentially burned down the barn. However, when they actually arrive at said barn, they find that Lapis and Peridot have actually made quite a few improvements, as it looks all decked out. They have all these new areas put in. You see that the silo has been placed into the side of the barn to cover up the hole that Peridot made. The truck has been rammed through the front of above the entryway. They've set up curtains. Essentially, they made it their own home away from home. And when Steven and Amethyst arrive, they find that Lapis and Peridot are sitting in the trunk of the truck, and they're watching TV, specifically Camp Pining Hearts, which Peridot has managed to get Lapis into. As such, once Steven arrives and calls out to Lapis and Peridot, both are immediately just happy to see him and go and meet him at the entrance. However, Peridot being Peridot, she tries to kind of lighten the mood by telling a joke, and, well, but it doesn't land. Although she laughs like it does, so give her that, I guess? I don't know. But also... sorry. Soda. So, bottom line, Lapis and Peridot invite Steven into the barn, and it turns out they have decked the place out some more and added their own little bit of decoration. Specifically, they've begun taking all the supplies and junk scattered around the barn, and they've been making art pieces with them. Well, they don't call it art, they call it meat morph, and which they got the idea by thinking, what if we made music into images? But it's still art, and each of the pieces they make are basically something that they symbolize themselves. Like Peridot has taken the broken tape recorder that she had and just set it up to talk about, to act as a representation of broken hearts, binds she's made and struggled to create, and so on. Lapis has created a bunch of pieces that should have deeper meaning to her, but are literally just what they are on the tin. But there is one collaborative piece among them, which is literally just a bunch of toilets, which Peridot calls Occupy, which is supposed to symbolize the time that she spent trapped in the bathroom at Steven's house. Which, it's a collaborative piece because Lapis, I am screwing up with names. Lapis uses her aquakinesis to just have them spew out water, so it is kind of fun in that regard. Which, another little thing I can probably say, what I do like about this episode is that we get to see more of Peridot and Lapis's, well, pretty much their rapport now that they're actually trying to be friends, and it's clear that basically off screen they've gotten along better, and they're just essentially like a little yin and yang trio, with Peridot being very much outgoing, loud, and still just jovial, while Lapis is a little bit more reserved and drawn back, but they complement each other well, and I do like how basically, despite all, when Lapis goes over the top, when Peridot goes over the top, again, I'm getting the names mixed up. When Peridot goes over the top, Lapis is the one that pulls her back down to earth and keeps things focused. Case in point, one of the morphs that Peridot wants to show Steven and Amethyst is a one-man band, so to speak, wherein she uses her metallurgy powers to try and hold up all these metal instruments and play. All she's managed to do is learn how to blow on the harmonica. The rest of them just fall apart. As such, Lapis comes in and says, hey, maybe we could do this together, and begins banging on a tambourine, while Peridot plays on the triangle, and they're just having fun, enjoying themselves, just having a good time. And again, I love their chemistry here, and it's just, you can tell from this episode why so many people ship Lapis and Peridot. I just love their little dynamic that they have for each other, and I think they complement each other well in that regard. But even through all this, Amethyst is still being a stick in the mud because she thinks that they've just been wasting their time with garbage. And while Steven says, oh, come on, Amethyst, you love garbage, Amethyst says, well, I used to, and who has time for all that stuff when Jasper's still out there? Which, yeah, when she shouts out Jasper's name, it pretty much just brings the whole mood down, and even Peridot tells Amethyst, hey, I don't bring up the J word around Lapis because it might be a touchy subject, which also earns her kind of a sideways raised eyebrow glance from Lapis that pretty much just says, hey, I'm not a kid. The point is, yeah, Amethyst is still in a mood, and she storms out of the barn in a huff. As such, Peridot wants to know what the heck's going on, and Steven does explain how Amethyst and Jasper fought, and, well, it's been getting to her ever since, and she's been wanting to beat Jasper to pretty much even the score, so to speak. As, well, part of the reason why the fight's getting to her is because, as was talked about during the battle, Amethyst is supposed to be like Jasper, so yeah, that it's essentially compare and despair, and ultimately Amethyst is despair and hard. However, Peridot is actually wants to try and give Amethyst a shoulder to cry on as she goes outside the barn while Amethyst is practicing her whip skills on some cans, and essentially tries to reassure Amethyst that she's so much better than Jasper. That basically, which, yeah, Amethyst realizes that Steven ratted her out, so to speak. But again, Peridot does try and put her best foot forward, and does try and reassure Amethyst that you're fine, you're better than her, you got all these, you can do all this extra stuff, and this extra stuff, and yeah, you may have been stuck in the ground for too long, but you're from a prime kindergarten, everything was put in your favor, yada yada yada, and she even further goes on to compare them, as she says, yeah, you're both from Earth, but she's from the beta kindergarten, you're from the prime kindergarten, everything was stacked in your favor. To which immediately Amethyst halts the conversation and says, wait, Jasper's from Earth? To which, yeah, Peridot realizes she needs to clarify that, and when she further explains that, and when she goes on to talk about the beta kindergarten, immediately Peridot's like, wait, have you seen it before? And Amethyst is like, no, I have not. And so Peridot decides to take Steven and Amethyst on a little trip, though she does briefly check back in with Lapis to see if she's okay, via shouting at her. Again, it's funny. It's actually kind of, so whatever. However, either way, immediately Peridot takes the warp and brings Steven and Amethyst to the beta kindergarten, which does look a bit different, which is in a desert. And basically, this one feels like it has more going for it than the prime kindergarten, because the sun is still shining on it, though to be fair, it's a desert, so it's still pretty desolate in its own way. But this one's very much brighter, and yeah, and yeah, it is clearly a kindergarten because there are holes dotted around the whole place because they're in it once again. It's in a cavern, and there are deactivated injectors all strewn about. But even Peridot admits that while this place may have the conditions for making a gem under the right circumstances, it's still not a good place to set up a kindergarten, as it's too small. It's clear that everything was a rush job, as various gems look like they were just popped out in random positions. The injectors look like they were just thrown all over the place. It pretty much just looks like it looks like that this place is just the worst place to actually use as a baseline for creating gems. And basically the reason for that is it was created during the war. Homeworld was just trying to get us out as many soldiers as they could, so they just threw this hash job together and hoped for the best, resulting in all this mismanagement, crooked holes, just everything just being craptacular. And so Peridot just talks about how, you may have been in the ground too long, but everything's going in your favor. Jasper came from this crap hole. Everything's all good. Then they find Jasper's hole. It's perfect. Like, it is just this giant hole, and you can tell it's Jasper's because you can see her arms just sticking out like this, like she came out roaring. As such, this trio are in awe of this, and Peridot tries finding flaw with it as she goes in to investigate, but no, it's glass all the way through to the back. This is the perfect hole. She has never seen one this good. And so Peridot realizes, the conditions she was created in were probably crappy, but Jasper is probably one of the best things that came out of this place. And yeah, this does further make Amethyst feel like crap, because this still further proves that Jasper is objectively better than her. However, Steven does still pretty much tell her, look, it doesn't matter where you're from, all that matters is what you do, how you define yourself, where you want to go in life, and you don't have to be held down by all this stuff. So Amethyst takes that to heart again and says, yeah, you're right, I'm my own gem, I can do what I want, I can be what I want to be, and what I want to be is the gem that takes down Jasper, which, yeah, immediately Steven and Peridot tell her to not do that, because, again, perfect hole, ultimate quartz, bad idea. But Amethyst is even more determined to do it because, again, she wants, essentially, it's now to just make a point. Do it for all the other misformed holes out there, all the misaligned gems, and it's just clear, and she even starts using all the other holes as representations. Like, there was, like, one skinny one, earlier there... Earlier, Peridot mentioned a Carnelia that came out sideways, just a little shrimpy one, and even in the final example, Amethyst mentions this big giant hole that she thinks, yeah, whoever came out of this must have been really messed up. Until Peridot explains, no, that's not an exit hole. This is actually, in fact, when Peridot goes to investigate, she finds that the hole is new, like it was just recently put in. And it makes the trio wonder who dug it. And when they go, and it makes the trio curious, and they begin investigating the kindergarten more, and they find more holes like it. But with these ones have metal bars spewed between them. And something I forgot to mention is, while the trio was investigating the beta kindergarten earlier and looking for Jasper's hole, Steven found the remains of an injector. Only this one looked like it had been torn apart, with the legs ripped off. And we soon see what those legs were for. Again, the metal bars. Steven begins wondering, why are these bars here? And as he gets close to one particular cage, something almost reaches out and attacks him. And sure enough, inside in almost all of the holes are corrupted gems, which immediately makes the trio wonder what's going on, why are these corrupted gems here, who put them there? And as they look around the area, they soon find the culprit standing right there in the middle of everything. Jasper. Which is where that episode ends and Earthlings begins, as Steven, Amethyst, and Peridot are all just kind of hiding behind some rocks, and Jasper is just kind of intimidating her army. Yeah, this is her new army, like she mentioned back in the... what was it again? I forgot the name of the episode. I keep forgetting. Hold on one second. It was Crack the Whip. Anyway. So this is where she's been storing all the corrupted gems. Personally, I think she should poof them, but maybe she doesn't know how to make a bubble, so whatever. Basically one of the corrupted gems she's intimidating is one of the creatures from the Gem Hunt episode, which she's just intimidating it and saying that she feels disgusted that she even has to resort to using these things, that the earth corrupts everything it touches, except her, of course, and that ultimately because of just how wrong these gems are, they deserve to suffer because that's their purpose now, blah, blah, blah. In the meantime, though, Steven and Peridot are a bit cautious about this. They decide that they decide that the best course of action is to retreat, go back to the temple, and get reinforcements. However, when they look to Amethyst to confirm this strategy, she's already run in. She's not going in guns blazing. She is trying to take a stealthy approach, but she is pretty much just saying, screw you guys, I'm doing this myself, which even they're like, no, this is bad. However, in the middle of Jasper's speech, as he continues talking about how everybody's made to suffer, and at the end of the day, everyone gets what they deserve, she immediately turns her head and says, isn't that right, Amethyst? Which, throws Amethyst off her game and causes her to fall out of stealth mode. As such, Jasper assumes that Amethyst is just there for a rematch, which, Amethyst quickly confirms, but Jasper continues mocking Amethyst and calling her wrong, a shrimp, and whatever, but Steven says no, she's not a shrimp, as he runs out and gets ready to fight, which, Jasper's like, rose quartz, no wonder Amethyst is here, your lackey's never stray far from you, which... sorry, I don't know why, but I love me some villain monologue, it's fun, and you don't get a lot of that in this show, just a straight up, just this diabolical character, so, I don't know, I like it, it's cheesy, but I like it, but bottom line, hold on one second again, sorry about that, Anyway, Jasper pretty much just starts spreading her insults to Steven because in her eyes he's just as much of a defect as Amethyst is because they don't fit into the gem caste system. As we've seen before with Peridot and other gems, every gem on Homeworld is created for a singular purpose, a purpose that's supposed to be able to fit into the Great Diamond Authority's hierarchy. And basically, if a gem can't fit into whatever purpose it was assigned for, then they're just wiped out, and that's just the way they are. Which, yeah, the way Jasper talks about it, it's basically very clear that this is a philosophy she lives by, that she just swears by. It's clear that that she not only drank the Kool-Aid, but she went back for more. Bottom line, she just thinks that like gems like Amethyst that came out wrong, or Steven, whose mother decided to break away from her predetermined path, are pretty much just breaking the natural order, and that ultimately this planet does nothing more than destroy and infest everything. Which finally causes Peridot to come out and say, "Hey, this planet's not all bad." Which even Jasper's like, "What are you doing here?" And when Peridot says that she's a crystal gem now, what I love is that Jasper doesn't even care. She just has a flat expression before she summons her helmet. As such, Steven gets ready to jump into the fight and help Amethyst take Jasper down, but Amethyst does not want any help. And while Peridot does try to help herself by showing off her metallurgy powers, well, the way she tries to use them is by using one of the metal sticks that Jasper used for her cages and try and pull it out of the ground. And it's wedged in there good, so she just spends the good chunk of time just trying to pull it out and causes some shame on Amethyst and Steven's part. Point is, though, even if she could get it out, Amethyst doesn't want her help, as she immediately grabs Steven and chucks him aside, saying, "I want to do this myself," which Jasper kind of just scoffs at because, whatever, she's still the stronger of the two. But Amethyst does actually get a couple good licks in, which, yeah, Jasper's expression makes it clear she did not see it coming. Unfortunately, Amethyst actually starts pushing her advantage too much, as when she tries to use the same attack again, well, this time Jasper was expecting it, so she braces herself. And so as Amethyst keeps trying to land more attacks on her, Jasper just keeps brushing it off and doesn't even react. As such, Amethyst does try to change it up as she lights her up on fire and goes into spin dash mode before rushing at Jasper at full speed with her fire whips. And while it does cause this explosion of dust and dirt, again, Jasper does nothing. She doesn't even react. All she does, at best, all Amethyst did was get some rubble on her shirt, which she just immediately brushes off. Which even she tells Amethyst, "Is it sinking in yet?" And yeah, Amethyst finally realizes, "I'm screwed. I can't beat you." Which Jasper further proves by knocking her around some more. As such, Steven finally decides he has to intervene as he throws his shield at an injector overhead and manages to crush Jasper with it, which she's Jasper, she'll be fine. But bottom line, Steven goes up to Amethyst and he asks if she's okay, but she says, "No, I can't beat her. It's impossible. She's too strong. I'm not like her." And finally, Steven just snaps at her. It's like, "Stop trying to be like Jasper. Stop trying to be like Jasper. She's the only one that thinks you're supposed to be like her. You're not like her. You're more like me because we're both wrong. We both have nowhere we can fit. And yeah, it sucks. It sucks having to fit into all this, but that's why we have each other. We can confide in each other. We can trust each other. We know we can rely on one another." Which, yeah, the speech does get to Amethyst and she realizes, and she says, "Us worst gems gotta stick together." And Steven responds with, "And that's why we're the best." As such, as Jasper throws off the injector, Steven offers his hand to Amethyst and helps her up. And the instant Amethyst is back on her feet, she just pulls Steven in for a hug. And immediately after the hug, they both vanish in an explosion of light and dust. And when the dust clears, someone new is standing in their place. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here today to witness the first fusion between Steven Universe and one of the crystal gems. In this case, allow me to introduce you to Smoky Quartz, the fusion between Steven and Amethyst. And I love Smokey. She's fun. Basically, she combines the best aspects of Steven and Amethyst's personality. Steven's kind of happy-go-lucky nature combined with Amethyst's snarkiness, and it all just kind of rolls together to create this kind of joking, jovial, excitable person who just kind of loves showing off in battle and making quips and comments, and it's fun. I love her, and I love her design too. Basically, Smoky Quartz does do a good job at combining Steven and Amethyst's looks, and she's a bit on the she's a bit bigger around. Her hair is basically it looks like Amethyst kind of more I want to say messy hair, but it's got the color of Steven's, and it kind of forms into a shape similar to his. And Steven's shirt, and basically Steven and Amethyst's shirts pretty much act as her top, with Steven's acting as the outer layer while Amethyst acts as an undershirt. And on top of that, with Amethyst leggings acting as socks, with Amethyst leggings and boots acting as her socks and shoes. And she also has 3 arms. One is a normal arm, and the other arm is a second arm that comes out of her elbow. So it's weird, kind of weird, but it's kind of be expected. Plus, she's a new fusion, so what can you do? On top of that, her weapon's a yo-yo. Yeah, when you combine a whip and a shield, apparently it creates a yo-yo, and she is immediately adept at using it. As such, the instant Jasper sees Smokey, she actually starts getting angry again, because again, this is another fusion, and she even yells out, "Is fusion the only trick you crystal gems know?" And Smokey responds, "Oh, I got plenty of tricks. You ever hear of sink the dink?" Before she just starts smacking Jasper with her yo-yo over and over, and it just causes Jasper to start getting angry herself and losing her composure before she rushes at Smokey in her own spin dash form, but Smokey manages to evade it, using her yo-yo as a grapple and an injector as her grapple point, which causes Jasper to miss her, but also smack into a cliffside and unfortunately release some of the corrupted gems that immediately run away. As such, Jasper is immediately upset and forlorn that her army is leaving her, but there's still one that's left, that corrupted monster she was chewing out earlier. As such, she immediately tries to make a run towards the corrupted monster, but Smokey immediately intervenes and cuts her off, hitting her more with the yo-yo, even jumping in and giving her a kick right to her chin. But Jasper still manages to get around them and runs up to the corrupted gem, going, "I'm not going to be beaten again by another fusion." As such, she grabs the monster and forces a fusion with it, which, okay, I'll admit, I do like the form of the fusion form that we get from seeing Jasper fuse with the corrupted monsters. Is essentially a gray, more monstrous version of Jasper with the jaw of with the sharp teeth and jaw of the monster, with horns sticking out, multiple legs, and even mix of her legs and the paws of the monster, which, yeah, again, it does look cool, and she's big and intimidating, easily towering over Smokey, but it also has bad idea written all over it, which I'll get to in a minute. But in the meantime, Smokey is not too concerned with this development, as she immediately just spins her yo-yo so fast that it creates a fan. And while the Jasper fusion tries its best to fight it off, well, Smokey pulls out 2 more yo-yos and creates a wind gust so great that it ends up throwing Jasper into the air and causes her and the monster to unfuse. And while Jasper tries to force the fusion again, unfortunately, all it does is end in failure, and both Jasper and the monster fall to the ground, with the monster actually landing on Jasper before running away. As such, Smokey begins congratulating herself on a job well done. Battles won, monsters beaten, bad guys down. All's well and good, right? Well, not really. So, going back to how fusing with the corrupted gem was just a bad idea all around, we see that Jasper is beginning to get corrupted, as for on her hands, you can see her skin turning blotchy, mixing in with the orange and the greens, and causing spikes to grow on her hand, and it starts spreading. And when Peridot sees it, she's just like, "Ew, that's disgusting." But Smokey just looks shocked and looks shocked and scared. And immediately she realizes what this is, and the shock of it causes her to unfuse back into Steven and Amethyst, which Steven immediately wants to run up to Jasper and try and fix her because this just happened. Maybe he can stop it, but even Amethyst kind of tells him to go with caution. And unfortunately for Steven, Jasper isn't exactly willing to see him, as when he tries getting closer, all Jasper sees in Steven is Rose, and and even when he says, I don't want to hurt you, I just want to help you," and tries to get her with a bit of his healing saliva, she just slashes at him and knocks him aside, which also results in with Peridot and Amethyst just freaking out and running to Steven's side. But ultimately, all this really did was cause Steven to lose his sandals and get a rip in his shirt. Otherwise, he's just fine. But in the meantime, as the corruption keeps spreading over Jasper, she talks about how she sees how Rose does it now. As when a gem has lost its purpose and no longer fits in, they'll follow anyone just to feel not worthless. Excuse me again. Sorry, puppy thing. But yeah, she continues talking again. She talks about how when a gem is at the bottom and has nowhere to go, they'll follow anyone just to not feel worthless. Even citing Peridot as an example, because Peridot used to be somebody, but now she's been stripped of her limb enhancers, her rank, and her dignity. Which Peridot says, "Hey, I at least have one of those things." But Jasper even questions Peridot, why are you so willing to defend this mud ball? Why this worthless mud ball? Which Peridot admits, it's not worthless, it's teeming with life. There's so many new things to explore. I keep learning new things about it myself. So many people are living on this planet, and that's what I'm doing. I'm living. Again, I like it. It's a nice little thing with Peridot's character, which I'll get to when I get to my thoughts on the episode. But overall, Jasper does not agree with Peridot, as she feels that the Earth is nothing more than a prison, one that she's been fighting so hard to get out of from the day that she emerged. And as basically the more she rants and raves, the more the corruption continues spreading. And while Steven tells Jasper to try not to move, well, Jasper pretty much gives Steven a big F-U, saying, "You can't manipulate me, Rose Quartz." And Steven's like, "I'm not trying to manipulate, I'm trying to help you." And Jasper's just aghast, like, "Help? You want to help me? After what you did to my colony, after what you did to my planet, after what you did to my diamond?" To which Steven responds with, "What, yellow diamond?" And Jasper's just aghast, like, "Not yellow diamond, my diamond, your diamond, pink diamond!" Which, yep, those are the last words Jasper says before the corruption fully takes hold and she transforms into a monster, who immediately lunges at Steven, Amethyst, and Peridot. However, thankfully, Peridot's efforts to use her metallurgy powers on one of the metal pieces finally bears fruit, as she immediately throws it right at Jasper and manages to stab her right in the gut, finally causing Jasper to poof. As such, as the trio is kind of in shock over what just happened, Amethyst finally steps forward, and after taking and breathing out a sigh, she says, "Come on, sis," before she bubbles up Jasper's gem and sends her back to the temple. So, yeah, all's well that ends well, I guess. And so, so the trio end up warping back to the countryside, and Peridot's all excited about what Smoky Quartz did, and even wants to make a metal yo-yo to commemorate it. But Steven and Amethyst, they just want to have a break. They just went through a big battle. They just beat Jasper. They think that maybe they could take a rest for a while. Unfortunately, rest doesn't exactly come for them, as the episode ends with them returning to the barn and seeing Garnet, Pearl, and Lapis as they're holding the Ruby Squad captive in floating water bubbles. So, yeah, it's clear that their day is not over yet. That's the end of the episodes, and my thoughts on them, I think they're really good. Again, it kind of feels, what I do like is that the episode does well as kind of a double-edged, it does well in going more into Amethyst's character. As was discussed in Crack the Whip and Steven versus Amethyst, well, Amethyst has got image issues up the wazoo, and has been continuously shown continuously told by many people that she's not right. And combine that with her own self-esteem issues and already feeling like a mess compared to other crystal gems, considering that she was created by the enemy and that was considered a monster, and yeah, she already hates herself for that. Now to further learn that she came out wrong, that she was supposed to be something better, but she spent too long on the ground, and that she's not even supposed to be what she's supposed to be. It can add even further that adds another layer of pain, especially since she has another gem that she can compare to in Jasper, which, yeah, this has been shown to me via the internet, and I agree with it. When you start comparing one thing to another, which I kind of do on occasion, but let's use this in the form of a person and their own abilities. When you start comparing yourself to someone else, you're ultimately going to end up disappointed, and you're ultimately going to end up disappointed because when you compare, essentially, if you by doing that, it can make yourself feel lesser. And if you feel better and start comparing yourself to other people, well, then you're a jerk. Basically, in the case of Amethyst, combine this with her own image issues and how she feels that she was already a mistake to begin with, and again going back to the whole how she learned she came out wrong. When Jasper keeps hammering into her how she's wrong, how she wasn't supposed to be like this, and how she should have been like her, and just to further prove how inferior Amethyst is, she just kicks her ass something fierce. It still clearly gets to Amethyst. And while she's gotten over her own fighting about prowess, and while she's clearly gotten a bit better since we last saw her, as Steven versus Amethyst did help get her somewhat out of the dump. Help get her somewhat out of the dumps, at least enough for Bismuth. Though maybe Bismuth's betrayal maybe caused the research. I don't know. The point is, while the talk that Amethyst and Steven had did get her out of the dumps enough, she still has Jasper on the brain. And the more she thinks about Jasper, the more she just wants to get another crack at her and show her that she isn't as worthless as she thinks. Which ultimately does have an impact on Amethyst's personality because, well, because it goes, well, on most days we've had like chill, laid back Amethyst. We have hard, determined Amethyst who has no room for fun. She's not in this for fun and games. So she has to be serious. She's got to focus on taking down Jasper. And ultimately, when she gets the chance in Earthlings, well, it's not, again, she's being driven by emotion, which ultimately, like Tim talked about when we looked at Crack the Whip, when you have a battle, it's a two-pronged attack. There's the physical, and there's the emotional. And if you can conquer someone emotionally, it can easily allow you to overpower them physically. And sadly, Jasper's been living in Amethyst's head rent-free for a while, so Amethyst immediately goes into the battle with her emotions on her proverbial sleeve. As, yeah, while she does manage to get a couple good hits in on Jasper, well, those pretty much are tantamount to lucky shots, because immediately after doing that, Jasper preps herself, and every further attack is worthless. And so, immediately combine that with Amethyst already thinking that Jasper is the better gem, yeah, it starts to get to Amethyst more, as he makes her angrier, more prone to fits, and when it finally sinks in for her how strong Jasper really is, it kind of causes her to have a little minor kind of break. I say minor because it's not as bad as you would think it would be, and we've seen her break worse in the series, but she pretty much just gets forlorn and says, no, she's right, she's the better gem, I can't compare. But again, it leads to some good character stuff because again, it helps her bond closer to Steven. As Steven does reiterate to her, you're not alone. Jasper's bigger, but she's the only one who says that you're supposed to be like her. Everyone else is everybody says you're fine. You are fine. And if you're like any other gem, you're like me, because again, this goes into Steven's character, because Steven, he's wrong too. As he mentioned, going back to the previous episodes, Steven is always constantly under the pressure of who he's supposed to be. He's supposed to be like Gross Quartz, the leader of the Crystal Gems, who's this awe-inspiring figure, but he's not Rose, he's Steven, but he has to keep going forward, and yeah, it sucks, but that's why they have each other. Yes, Amethyst came out wrong, and Steven is not Rose, but that ultimately is what makes it. But they can share. But they can share knowing that even if they don't feel right, they can still have each other. They can at least talk to one another. Yes, this is something they have in common. They feel wrong and they're out of place. And knowing that they're kind of suffering together, it brings them closer, because now they know they're not alone. They have someone they can talk to, they can rely upon, and it's ultimately that kindred spirit that brings them together to form Smoky Quartz. It's awesome, and I like that. I love that I love that the first fusion between Steven and one of the crystal gems was caused by shared character points. As with yeah, Steven and Amethyst's conflicts are not entirely the same, as Amethyst come from a place of self-loathing, while Steven's is more in the similar case that Amethyst has with Jasper, compare and despair, as he has to feel like he constantly has to live up to some preconceived notion with his mother. But ultimately, this still has them comparing to other people and thinking they're supposed to be something else. That they feel lesser than the other gems by comparison. But at the end of the day, but this bond that they share as the worst gems, it makes them realize they are stronger together. They can rely on one another. If one feels down, the other can pick them back up. They're always at each other's side, and so that mutual kinship creates this new fusion, and I love it, and it's nice, and I love Smokey. Smokey is awesome. She combines the best aspects of Steven and Amethyst, and she's so fun. I love her. It's great. I just love her. But what makes it better, too, is that we also get some more... and ultimately, yeah, it does lead to some great fight scenes between Jasper and Smokey, which, yeah, Smokey hits the ground running on her first battle. Immediately bring out the battle quips, just not letting up for a second on Jasper. And what I love too is that Jasper ends up falling victim to the same over emotional state that Amethyst was in. As the instant Smokey starts gaining a small bit of advantage in the fight, she just starts going all out without any consideration for the collateral damage, which ends up biting her in the ass as she ends up losing her army because of it. It's great. I love it. And we see that's another thing I like about Jasper. We see the episode, I think, does a good job at showcasing more of her weaknesses, so to speak, because physically, Jasper is the ultimate quartz soldier. We see that in her fighting abilities, and when Steven and Amethyst go to the beta or when Steven, Amethyst, and Peridot go to the beta kindergarten and see her hole, again, it's a perfect hole. Even Peridot mentions how she's never seen a hole this perfect before. So in terms of raw power and strength and abilities, nobody compares to Jasper. But imagine having to live your whole life under the mindset of, I'm the best, I'm the greatest, and then suddenly getting knocked down a few pegs. Because, well, here's the thing. Despite Jasper being the ultimate quartz, she has lost quite a few times, and all of them to fusions. When she fought Garnet, Garnet took her down and won. When she was Malachite, she did nearly win a fight, if not for the intervention of Steven and his watermelon compatriots, which ultimately ended with Alexandrite turning the tide and beating her again. The next time she fought the gems, she was taken down by Stevani, and now this time she's once again taken down by Smoky Quartz, who again is another fusion. So here's the thing. Imagine with me, you are the biggest, baddest soldier in the land. Everybody is supposed to look up to you, and they're so imposing that the sheer mention of your presence is enough to get people cowering in cowering in their homes. And suddenly you meet someone better, and ultimately, and again, in the case of the fusions, they are in some regard like. I don't want to agree with the bad guy here. Jasper, in some regard, is right when she says fusion is just a cheap trick to make weak gems feel stronger. And again, in a twisted way, she's right, because a fusion is ultimately the sum of its parts, and you can have a gem that's not particularly strong, but then when you put them in a fusion, basically what makes one gem who they are and what makes the other gem who they are get mixed together into something new. And the new fusion is essentially greater than the sum of its parts, which is a great thing about fusion, and it's part of why Jasper could take down Ruby and Sapphire separately. But then when she actually fought Garnet in a fair fight, Garnet was able to overpower her because Garnet was the combined strengths of two gems, even if they were smaller. And that was what ultimately made Jasper realize, okay, maybe there is something to this fusion, to the point where she was willing to. But that ultimately is another blow to her ego. Case in point, first she faces off against fusions, and at first she thinks that she can easily take them down because in her mind she just thinks a weak gem is a weak gem no matter the form, and then she gets her ass kicked by Garnet. So she immediately starts trying to fuse herself. She immediately starts trying to get whoever she can to fuse with. First it was Lapis, and then it was the corrupted gem. And both times things didn't work out. Oh, rest assured, she did get extra power from them, and she loved being Malachite, despite the abuse she had to go through and how much she struggled just to stay in control of the fusion. When she was in control, she fucking loved it. She loved having Lapis's aquakinesis. She loved combining it with her raw strength and power. She loved being it to the point where when she stopped being it, she went crawling back to Lapis saying, "Come on, let's be Malachite again. We can do all this awesome stuff together. Just come on." But Lapis doesn't. And then she's told no. And again, going back to the whole reputation of you're the biggest, baddest bitch in the yard, everyone looks up to you. Imagine living your whole life being told you are the greatest of the greats, no one else can compare. And suddenly, but then the instant you need someone else's help to do something, nobody's ready to no one's willing to volunteer. Everyone's afraid of you, and anyone that you do end up with runs away from you the first chance that they get. And, well, let's just say that it is kind of tragic in a way. Basically, it kind of that's another thing I like about the episode in a way. It kind of showcases just how much Jasper has built herself up, both from homeworld society and from her own hype. Because despite being supposed to be the ultimate quartz, she's not as great as she thought she was. She's been beaten multiple times via a trick that she initially disregarded. And when she tries to use the trick, anyone that she wants to use it with is not willing to stay with her. First, Lapis tells her, "No, what we had was unhealthy, I never want to do that again." And then likewise, when she tries doing it again with the monster runs away from her first chance it gets too. She feels abandoned. She feels weak. And for her, it's a first. Again, it falls back into that two-pronged attack idea. Because ultimately, she is strong in her base form. But as we've seen with various fusions, even the strongest gen can be taken down with the right strategy. And with fusions, she always underestimates them, and they always get the jump on her. Because, again, it combines the strengths of the gems that make them up. But and yet every time Jasper, which means that Jasper realizes that against one gem she may be powerful, against many gems she doesn't stand a chance, which she does not like. She does not like at all. And again, now that she has to rely on someone else to keep her strength up, again, because nobody wants to be around her, it makes her feel lesser. And for a gem like Jasper, who is supposed to be who's supposed to be the perfect soldier, it can hurt. She has built herself up so much that when she's finally hit with the reality that she's no better than that she's actually lesser than she thought she was, that she really is not as strong as she was, it hurts. She doesn't like, and it's clear that she's not one that likes feeling weak. And when showcased that through all these means, you can tell it breaks her a little. It's why she has that speech when Steven offers to help her when she's getting corrupted. She's saying, "I finally see how you do it, Rose." Because it's like you always want gems when they're at their worst, after they've become useless. Because once you're at the bottom and have nowhere to go, you'll take anything. And that's exactly what it is like with Jasper. She was desperate. She wanted to win. She needed to prove that she was still the strongest. And yet, at the end of the day, no one ever wanted to be with her. She could never win. She kept losing, and it hurt more than she would like. And in a strange, sick way, it does make you feel sorry for her. Because it showcases that despite all of her strength, she's just as much of a victim of Homeworld's manipulations as almost any other gem, which, at the end of the day, she's still a villain, and even after this, we do see more with her that showcases that she's still kind of a mega bitch, which, yeah, it's a spoiler for later, as she will come back, but that's much later on, so we'll get to it when we get to it. But ultimately, yeah, it does, in a way, make you feel sorry for her, but it still makes it clear, but at the same time, she's still clearly a nutball, so. Again, it's a nice little way of showcasing more of the complexity with her. That, yeah, she built herself up all this hype, and yet at the end of the day, when she realizes the hype doesn't apply, it breaks her because of how much she's built her own self-image around it. So, There you go. Again, which another little thing I like too, if we're going by character stuff, is ultimately Peridot and Lapis. They're admittedly lesser in both episodes, but again, like I mentioned during the plot summary, I like seeing more of Lapis and Peridot interacting, and I do like seeing how they finally built up a camaraderie. And yes, they're essentially like the Odd Couple if the Odd Couple wasn't getting on each other's cases, because Peridot's a lot more outgoing and friendly and excitable, while Lapis is a bit more reserved and more introverted. They're both not. I mean, neither of them is like antisocial. They both they both still clearly care about Steven. As the instant Steven showed up to the barn, they both went to go meet him happily. And even kind of using another example, when Jasper almost hurt Steven, both Amethyst and Peridot ran to his side, with Peridot the whole time still struggling with the metal bar, and then the instant that Jasper almost hurt Steven, she struggled even harder before saying, screw this, and ran to his side. It's, again, I do like seeing more of that, but I do like how we've seen it, where it is in this episode. Yeah, we don't really see how it got to that point, but I do like seeing it there, that Peridot and Lapis are at a point where they can just chill, chat, have fun together, socialize, work off of each other, and it's cute. I like it. It's cute. Again, I can see why people would ship Peridot and Lapis after this episode, because in one little tour of the new and improved barn, you can see their immediate rapport. They are in touch. They both complement each other so well. Peridot's outgoing nature is enough to help. Is a good way of bringing Lapis out of her shell and talking to people more, which she clearly still needs more practice in. But then likewise, Lapis's more down to earth and quiet nature is a good way of evening out Peridot's own excitable moods, which we showcase throughout the episode. When Peridot invites everybody in, and she encourages Lapis to show off her meat morphs, but then likewise with Lapis, when she tells Peridot, when Peridot failed with her one gem band thing, immediately Lapis is like, well, maybe you should just try one at a time. Here, I'll help. It's, again, they make a nice pair. It's adorable and I like it. Again, they don't end up having there's nothing romantic in their relationship, but it's clear they built a bond with each other, and it's adorable. I like it. And again, with Peridot's stuff, I do like how we do see how things mean to her, and we see her in a genuine moment. As like what we've seen with her character development, one of the reasons why she likes Earth, because it's a place where she can live. She can experience new things, which, again, I think makes sense considering her scientific nature. She's curious about things. When she encounters something she doesn't understand, she wants to learn more about it. When she learns more stuff about herself that she didn't know about, she wants to investigate it more, including interests, abilities, friends. It's all interesting, and I do like how she says it. It's a shortened version. It's essentially a more simplified version of how I'm putting it, but it's just that she's saying, I'm living on this planet. I'm living here. I'm exploring. I'm discovering new things about myself, and it's amazing, and I like that. But by that same token, another thing about the episode that works, in my opinion, is when Jasper gets corrupted. Not in that we see her get corrupted, because yeah, that one is ultimate. That's a whole other can of worms, which I'll talk about after I talk about this moment. But basically, it drops a hint. Now again, you know what the ultimate reveal is because of what Haley said, but which, spoilers, Rose Quartz's Pink Diamond. But basically, this is the first hint of the bigger picture. We've seen little tidbits here and there, like when we were introduced to Yellow Diamond, or the stuff with Bismuth in last week. But this episode in particular is what drives things home. Because in this episode, Jasper finally drops another little nugget of knowledge. In this case, part of the reason why she hates Rose is because she did something to a diamond. Specifically, Pink Diamond, who, as Jasper said, was her diamond. We don't know what it is. We don't know what's going on. And again, this is the first hint at Pink Diamond that we've gotten in the whole show. And it makes you wonder what happened. What occurred that was so bad that it made Jasper want to see Rose's gems shattered? We don't know. we're curious and drawn in to find out. But the only person who can give us answers was Jasper, and she got corrupted and poofed. So she's not really in a position to tell everybody. So I like that. It's again another little hint towards where things go, which kind of going on to Jasper's corruption. I feel like that this further kind of confirms the theory I was presenting when when I previously talked about corruption. Because here's the thing. Well, I do disagree with the mantra that basically her own defeated state is what actually brought the corruption on and not fusing with a corrupted monster, because I think that's stupid. I actually do think that fusing with the monster is what led to the corruption, because keep in mind, my theory posited that it resulted in intense emotions being transferred right onto the gems and causing a crack in their mind. But in this case, it's clear. But what also confirms my theory, in my opinion, is how fast the corruption spreads. The worse Jasper gets. The more her emotional state goes down, the quicker the corruption seems to take hold. The angrier she gets, the faster it seems to spread, and it gets. And I think that's a good indicator of how corruption is essentially the gem equivalent of insanity. We've seen that with again, going off of my theory when I talked about it before with Centipedal. Because again, going off of Centipedal's off of what Centipedal said or drew in this case, what led to the corruption was that big white light in the sky that was sent directly from the diamonds. And when she remembers the event, it causes her to break down into tears, and shortly after, that's when she starts reverting back into her full corrupted form. And now we have Jasper, who has now gotten a taste of corruption via fusing with the gem monster. And basically, while she didn't experience the same trauma that the monster did in order to get her to that point, she's not exactly helping it along either. As the worse she feels and the angrier she gets, the faster the corruption seems to spread. Again, I don't think it was Jasper's emotional state that started the corruption for her. Again, I think it was fusing with a corrupted gem that did it, which again, stupid decision overall. But again, it's smart. But again, I feel like that encourages the theory, I guess. I feel like it encourages how things go in that regard. So I think I like that. And again, in terms of other cool stuff, I do like that we got to see more of the beta kindergarten and how Hatton just kind of further expands on it. Which, yeah, I do like Peridot's commentary on all the holes and so forth. I love the reveal of Smoky Quartz, who I think is just a kick-ass fusion in every regard. So, two thumbs up. Two thumbs up there. I love the action is awesome. I loved seeing the final confrontation with Jasper and the revelations it revealed. I love the character stuff with Amethyst, Steven, Peridot, Lapis, and so forth. And the ending reveal with the rubies being there. It's just nice. It's nice and still leaves things open, makes you wonder, oh crap, what are we going to be doing now? And I do love Amethyst's reaction at the end of the episode when she realized that their day is not done yet, and she's like, So, yeah, it's good. I like it. So overall, Beta and Earthlings, fun pair of episodes, awesome pair of episodes, great character stuff, great action, great hinting for future stories. Overall, just amazing. So, yeah, that's about it. Thank you for watching. I'm Samuel Johnson, and tune in next week as we get to the finale of Season 3, and we learn exactly what Rose did to Pink Diamond. So, till then, I hope you have a good night, and take care.